That's our theme song, starting with you, waiting for it to really start. Hello, hi, and welcome. This is your DBT video number something. I think 14 is what I put. I think it's the 14th series. No, it's the 14th video in the series about the DBT skills. Hi, I'm Dwight Hurst, your psychotherapist, host, and very best friend for the next few minutes as I talk to you about an important part of DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. Hey guys, it's been a few weeks. Sorry about that. Had a little bit of sickness, a little bit of holidaying, and a little bit of didn't do it another week. I think that accounts for most of the weeks. Sick, holiday, didn't do it. There we go. I'm doing it now. So there you are. I hope that you've gone and rewatched all the other DBT skill videos in my absence, but I'm back and we won't belabor the point. We're going to be plowing right ahead like a mad person into the throes of emotional regulation. We're going to be talking about emotional regulation today, which is one section of dialectical behavioral therapy. Most people who come in for any sort of therapy, but particularly for DBT, find that they are having lots of strong emotions. As we've talked before, we have the distress tolerance skills, which are the ones that are made to survive states of high panic and anxiety. We also have the core mindfulness skills, which are day-to-day mindful approaches to life, which should help to reduce some of that anxiety proactively as well. Then we talked about interpersonal effectiveness, how to work with other people, and now we're on the stage of emotional regulation. These are generally more proactive strategies to help you to manage your emotions and to make you less likely to have these overwhelming cascades of emotions that make everything seem unfortunate and at a loss in your life. So that's kind of where they fit in with the other skills. So when you're watching this one, keep in mind that this particular skill, we're going to be talking about the please skill. As you know, DBT loves acronyms. Feelings love themselves, as I've said before, but DBT definitely loves acronyms. So this is the please skill. You'll see in a minute how dedicated DBT is to acronyms by how ridiculous it is to call this an acronym. But anyway, we'll get into that. The please skill is specifically designed to help reduce vulnerability to emotional irregulation. So emotional instability is something that we are vulnerable to. The please skill is made up of things that you can do to proactively help yourself to be a little less vulnerable to overwhelming emotions. So as with all the other skills, this is not a magic fix, and this is not meant to be saying if you do all these things in the please skill, you will never be overwhelmed with your emotions again. What it does is it specifically reduces your vulnerabilities. It's similar in a way. The please skill actually reminds me a lot of a skill that's talked about in substance abuse treatment settings. They call it the HALT skill, H-A-L-T. It stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And so what they say when you're going to like AA or some other groups like that, they talk about this acronym of HALT. If you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, you should halt whatever you're doing and take care of that problem because you're likely more setting yourself up for a relapse than anything else if you've got those things going on. So that's the idea. It is not to say that if you are not hungry, not angry, not lonely, or not tired, you'll never do drugs again, because that would be silly. But it is a way to reduce your vulnerability. And that's what the please skill really is being all about now. So let me tell you what it stands for. Kind of. And I say kind of because the first one, please, the P stands for physical. The L stands for illness, right? Now, if let's all elicit a group internet groan over that one. So that's the P and the L. Physical illness. You have to say illness to hit the L really hard because we all are committed to this acronym, people. Don't let me down on this one. All right. Physical illness. What does that have to do with emotional regulation? Well, specifically, this makes it even worse, by the way, from an acronym standpoint. Make sure that you are treating your physical illnesses, okay? That's the idea. A lot of times we feel like we got to be super tough, super smart, super fast, super whatever. We've got to go to a super breakneck pace, or we get overwhelmed, we burn out, we shut down completely. And I would suggest either of those from a term of physical health can be bad for you. If you're just going at a breakneck speed, then you're going to break your neck. I think that's why it's called that. If you're not moving at all, you're not really going to be very healthy either. And so those are the places we go when we're emotionally overwhelmed with our physical health. So the idea is to treat your physical well-being or your physical illness to make sure that you're as physically healthy as is possible. Do you go to the doctor when you're supposed to? Do you go to the dentist when you're supposed to? Do you take good care of your own proactive medical hygiene? Do you take the medicines you're supposed to take? Are you compliant with whatever you're supposed to do, surgery, post-surgery? Do you have chronic pain? Do you do physical therapy? All of these things are things that you should be aware of and try to make sure that you're treating to the best of your ability. And that's kind of the idea with the P. With the P, the physical illness. So that's the most disgusting one in the acronym. The others actually pretty much work. Okay, the other one is eating. One of the things you can do if you are finding, that's the E, by the way. So we've got the PL, we got the E, ting. Eating is one of those things that you can ask yourself, how's my eating? Yeah, it's probably a good question for all of us to ask ourselves. Am I eating appropriately? Am I eating something healthy? Am I eating something that has plenty of protein and fiber? Do I have a good balance of things? You can even go more specific with this. Obviously, you talk to your doctor about what is a good diet for you personally, especially if you have a good doctor who knows you. If you have access to all kinds of cool resources, you can even talk to a nutritionist. But you can actually go online and find a whole lot of good resources. There's a million different kinds of diets out there, and sometimes it's a good idea to try. When I say diet, by the way, what I mean is a ritual, regulation pattern for how you want to eat permanently. I don't mean a diet like the South Beach diet to drop a couple lbs or whatever. I'm talking about an actual practice of how you eat most of the time. So what you find is that fad diets don't really do much for you. But if you can find a good balance of protein, carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, fruit, vegetables, fiber, all those types of things, if you can find a good balance that works well for you and that your body reacts to, then hey, you can have a pretty good time. There's many allergies that have been paid a lot of attention to over the last, 10 years, 20 years, more than that probably. Society at large has become very aware of gluten allergies, dairy allergies, peanut allergies, things like that. It's an interesting thing because a lot of people think it's funny to make fun of those things and pretend that they're just made up. But as a matter of fact, some of them can kill you. And most commonly, they don't kill you, though, but they can have impact on your emotions and your behavior if you're not eating correctly. And so if you have access to a doctor to talk about these types of things, it's a good thing to do to help make sure that you're doing it as well as possible. I will say that my friend Lee, who's been on the broadcasts and the podcast many times, very heavily into ADHD treatments because of his own experience with it and experience as a therapist. One of the things he's discovered and shared a lot of research with me about how many people with ADHD find that if they have a lower carbohydrate diet, they can focus better. That's not true for all types of ADHD or all people, but just something to think about. If you can figure out a good pattern for yourself and your body, then you can do better and it will impact you emotionally. Okay, that's the E. So we got the PL, we got the E, now here's the A. The A is what to avoid. They really wanted to use, they could have just said alcohol and then avoid it, I guess. But okay, avoiding drugs and alcohol. Now, you might notice that, if you're really a DBT superfan, you'll notice that there are times in DBT where it recommends pleasurable activities as a distress tolerance skill. And one of the ones that usually lists is having a nightcap if you're so inclined. I have a lot of people who ask me about that one and say, wait, are they telling me to drink my problems away? No, they're not. If they're mentioning that just as a pleasurable activity that reduces distress, they're assuming that you're not an alcoholic or assuming that you don't have personal, social, health, or religious prohibitions on alcohol. And in general, here's the other thing. The more that you can avoid mood-altering drugs and alcohol and self-medication, usually that will, once again, reduce your vulnerability. Remember, this is not a magic trick to make sure you never get overwhelmed again. But in general, if you can avoid drugs and alcohol, you can avoid emotional overwhelming vulnerabilities. You can reduce your vulnerability and increase your resiliency oftentimes, particularly if you're doing that as a coping skill. I'm going to throw another one on here, and this is a tough one for many of us. and many of us at different times, but caffeine is one that we have a lot of a relationship with in our culture, especially in the United States. I don't know where you are when you're watching this, but caffeine is a big thing. And one of the things that they'll tell you if you're having strong anxiety is a lot of doctors and a lot of therapists will ask you to reduce or even cut out for a while your intake of caffeine, because caffeine will provoke that at times. So something to think about there. S, we've got the P, we got the L, sort of, we got the E and the kind of the A. Oh my gosh, DBT, do this to me with the acronyms. Sleep. How is your health of sleep? And that's another one, just like with eating, that you can ask yourself, ask a question. How's my sleep? If I'm having overwhelming emotional responses to things, sleep is a good thing to ask myself about. In fact, many people who are treated with DBT struggle with borderline personality disorder or overwhelming treatment-resistant depression, PTSD, or both combinations of some of those things. Most of those people have some type of interruption in their sleep cycle as well. And so when we say, I just have trouble sleeping and we don't do anything about it, once again, we can go back and try to look at that and say, are there underlying health things? Are there anxiety things? Are there things I could be trying to do in order to help myself get to sleep? Actually, interestingly enough, there's an upcoming recording that I'm doing for the podcast that I do, the Broken Brain podcast, where we're going to be looking at sleep, how to go to sleep, what to do about sleep problems, and the psychological role that sleep plays. Anyway, very interesting type of a subject. And so it's a good thing to look into. In the medical realm, a lot of what they have are sleep aids that are medication-based. Many people have bad reactions to those. If that doesn't work for you, you can also look into natural health remedies, and some of those things can sometimes help. You can also look into sleep studies where they look at how you sleep, see if you have any type of actual medical sleep disorders. Things like that can help with that. And it's just basically something good to do. What you can do on your own is you can, one quick thing, you'll hear more if you listen to the episode on sleep, but one quick thing you can try to do is if you find yourself caught in what they call the pattern of insomnia, where you're staying up late, unable to get to sleep, and then throughout the day you doze off or take naps, one of the things you can do is try to make a rule for yourself throughout a week where you don't sleep at all during the day. And sometimes that will make you more tired, and tired enough that even if you are having anxiety or other problems, you can fall asleep at night and try to get into a different pattern. That's just a simple do-it-yourself. It by no means works for everyone, but it's can be effective. We're already at the last E, the second E. Second E, same as the first. Not really at all. The second E is exercise. Now, this is one that's kind of a hot button topic, especially if you have treatment-resistant depression and people tell you, just go to the gym. Just go to the gym and you'll be feeling better. That's how they talk. I don't know why they talk like that. It doesn't make them sound very intelligent. But anyway, exercise is not a magic pill to get rid of depression. It's not a magic pill to get rid of anxiety. However, it is useful for the reduction of vulnerability to those things quite a bit. I like to look at it like this. There's different forms of exercise. I have noticed for myself personally and many of my clients, when we say exercise, we all have access to Pinterest. We all have access to gyms in our neighborhood, or that person you know who's doing clean eating and CrossFit and all those things. Maybe you are that person. Maybe you love that. Maybe that motivates you and you have a lot of fun doing that kind of stuff. That's great if you do. But I want you to understand that when we talk about exercise from a psychological benefit, or with that as the goal of having a psychological benefit, what we're really talking about is doing enough that it benefits you emotionally. If you get enough exercise to benefit you emotionally, for most people, they find that that's not the same thing as a cardiovascular or a weight loss or a strength increasing benefit. Not necessarily. If you just go out on a walk every day, if you're able to go on a brief jog, if you're able to go on a bike ride, if you're able to walk your dog, if you're able to go and do some gardening, and that's the other thing too, is diversifying. Exercise really means physical activity, right? It doesn't necessarily mean becoming a bodybuilder. It doesn't mean running a marathon necessarily, although those are forms of exercise. It could mean gardening. It could mean building something. It could mean some form of art that you create if it's physically engaging enough. Whatever it is, if it's something that gets you up and gets you moving and gets you some sort of benefit, some sort of physical expansion of energy, that can benefit you emotionally. And that's what we're looking for when we talk about it in this way. I'm not a personal trainer, I know everyone who sees me on these videos thinks I must be, but hey, I'm not. So that's not the goal. The goal is just to benefit yourself. Emotional styles. So one last recap here. We got the obvious acronym of PLEASE, or please, okay? Please yourself by reducing your vulnerability to emotionally overwhelming feelings through treating your physical illness, managing what you eat, avoiding mind-altering substances whenever possible, make sure to monitor and be aware of your sleep patterns, and get some exercise and be aware of what kind of exercise you are getting. One of the last thing about this is that one nice thing about all of these things is that you can also ask yourself, has there been any change in any of those things, any serious change, especially if it was a change that you didn't plan on due to some kind of major life change that impacted your schedule changed, you changed jobs, you had a new kid, was something changed in your life to where one of those things was impacted and you didn't notice it. And now all of a sudden I've been eating crappier for 6 months and not really thinking about it. Or I just used to get some exercise and now I get no exercise, or anything like that. That's something you can look for proactively. If you find yourself getting overwhelmed by emotions, the PLEASE acronym will help you to give yourself some things you can look at and say, have I experienced any changes in those things? And could that be setting me up to have more overwhelming emotions? So, all right. Thank you for joining me in this wonderful DBT skills video. We'll be coming back again at you soon to talk about building mastery. That's the next one. So you can research that on your own if you want to in the meantime. And until then, I'll be your host, Dwight Hurst. Hey, check out this video and others at dwighthurst.com, or here on the YouTube channel. You can check out the podcast. There's a multitude of different topics. You go to dwighthurst.com/podcast, or click on the archives at the website, or listen to it on iTunes, and you can go down and listen to all of them things that we've ever been done talking about. Talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.